here's my whole take with this particular camera in comparison to the 1-inch edition. To tell you the truth, I'm not impressed. So in this video, I want to compare between the Insta360 X5 and some of its recording modes to the Insta360 One RS 1-inch 360 edition. So this is a larger sensor, and this has seemingly greater computational processing as well as higher resolution. So on the One RS 1-inch 360 edition, I'm going to be recording in one mode, which is the only mode that I ever record in, which is 6K at 30 FPS instead of 24. And it's going to be in log mode. What I want to do is this mode especially gives me the greatest image quality that the camera can offer me with relation to access to colors and dynamic range. Versus I wanted to compare it to the various modes in the Insta360 X5 in terms of its various mode and how it looks, whether that look is indoors versus bright outdoor settings. One of the key differences here between the two cameras is it's not, I don't think image quality is the appropriate comparison, although that is the obvious thing to look at. And we will be looking at that. But in addition to image quality, there's an aspect of size, compactability, and handling that comes into play. So in the case of the Insta360 One RS 1-inch 360 edition, which is the which is the biggest sensor version that they have within the lineup of Insta360. You'll notice it's also clunkier, right? Not only is the sensor size bigger, but you've got the bracket that goes around, so you can attach a wireless microphone to it, so you can get a direct feed. Now, if you want it to be smaller, then obviously you're gonna have to remove all that bracketing. On the other hand, also when it comes to attaching the wireless aspects, so you got the DJI mic here. Sorry, Kelly. Versus the Insta360 wireless mic that's attached here. Okay, you want to go outside? Okay, you know what? Let's do this. Let's go outside and see how well this performs between the various modes. And let's open this door. And away we go. So what I wanted to do is first, and I'm not gonna, so this is as far as I'm gonna stretch this out. So yeah, this is about even between the cameras here. So here we are, bright, sunny Houston Saturday morning. And this is the quality of the image that you get. So I think it's rather, so if we go into, say, a shaded situation, so if the light is coming from here, and I want to step into the shade, what does that look like? So if we go into a shaded setup, how does that look like? Now, we're outside. There's plenty of ambient light to be had, but this is what that image quality is. This is me in a shaded situation. Typically, I would see a lot of noise, but when it comes to 5.7K plus mode, no HDR, no adaptive tone mapping on the X5, and this is just standard log on the Insta360 One RS 1-inch edition. Coming back inside, and what I'm going to do is I will walk down the hallway, which is seemingly the darker part of the house here. Actually, we'll go right here. In fact, we will step into the kids' room, into a really dark room. This is what that looks like. This is almost like no light, some ambient light might be coming in from the hallway and the curtained windows. And then when I step out, so the kind of lighting that you would see typically indoors is similar to the effects of or the ambience of the hallway right here. And so that all of that was showcased 5.7K, 5.7 plus K on the Insta360 Insta360 X5 versus the Insta360 One RS 1-inch 360 edition. So we're doing 30 frames per second, 5.7K on the X5, as well as 6K 30 FPS on the Insta360 One RS 1-inch edition. This is the flat picture profile, and of course, he's going to be playing with mud and dirt. Yuck! Put it down. Put it down. And this is probably the most comparable version of, I guess, in terms of modality. Flat picture profile on both, similar resolution, and um, I'm wondering, is there? And I think that there's no HDR, and there's no log. This is actually flat, whereas this is log. Although I think log on the 1-inch edition is closer to flat than it is log. But we're going to do the same thing. We're going to go from a bright outdoor environment. From here, let's step into the shade. And with a rather textured wall behind me, what does that look like in terms of the quality of the image? So we're here. This is what the background is. How well is the quality? Even if we go backwards this way, something that's really bright and super detailed, like the textures of a fence. And coming back up, we'll also take a note of the details in the sky. One of the things that I pay attention to, that, well, not that I'm paying attention, it grabs my attention between cameras, is the image quality with relation to what's known as highlight roll-off, specifically within the context of looking at clouds. And so when uh, one of the video camera features is the white of the clouds, how well does the um, how well does it retain all those details? Elias, aja. So, and now from a very bright, well-lit environment, we step back inside, and typical indoor environment, no external lighting. All of the lighting is ambient coming in through the window, but then we go into a more dimly lit environment, which is the hallway here. And the lighting is ambient, bounced off of the other side of the home. And then we go into a actual dark space, and that is the bedroom, the kids' room, which is essentially the dark. There's no light, maybe some ambient light coming in. And what is the quality of the image coming out this way? And so that was 5.7. Okay, now the next image mode I'm going to look at is log. How does that compare? So now we are in 5.7K on the X5, but this time we are recording in log. Now, in order to enable and activate log on this camera, you have to first um, uh, bump it to 60 frames per second. Now, on the Insta360 One RS 1-inch 360 edition, in order to be able to get close to 60 frames per second, I need to bump that resolution down significantly. And this is one of the key differences in the technology that you see between older and newer technology. With newer technology, they're able to give you higher frame rates um, in a smaller package at higher resolutions. So in 6K mode, which is the older one, 30 frames per second is the highest that I'm able to go. Whereas here, 5.7K is not even the highest resolution. Highest resolution is 8K, but if I want 60 frames per second and log, then I'm going to need to bring it down to 5.7K. And then I get access to 60 frames per second. When you do enable 60 frames per second, you also have to then enable active HDR. And what that does is it gives you access to iLog. And so the question now is on the Insta360 1RS 1-inch 360 edition, they give you a log picture profile. How is that log different than the iLog on the Insta360 X5? I feel like the iLog is actually a flatter image profile. Now, I haven't found an actual .cube LUT file for iLog. However, if you pull this footage into the Insta360 editor, the Studio app, and it will allow you the option to apply a LUT. And so this is the kind of image quality that you get out of it. Now you could choose to manually grade it, and that's up to you. But if you're talking about quick turnaround and things like that, having a LUT that brings it back to a standard profile, just extracting all that dynamic range and color fidelity, having a LUT file is helpful. But here we are with a shaded environment, but still outdoors. Brick wall texture, wood texture in terms of details in the background. How much of that detail is maintained versus lost, and also with relation to YouTube compression. And as we are making our way toward the lit environment again, pay attention to the clouds. Although you probably saw that already as I was talking earlier. Let's now go inside, back to the dining room area in a indoor ambient lit environment, and how much noise seems to appear. The exposure settings and all that stuff I have left to auto, and so it's just easier that way. We are in the hallway now, very dimly lit environment, generally speaking. And now let's go into a very dark environment. Here we are, the bedroom, or the kids' room, super dark, no light. Are you able to see anything on either? My assumption is no. And so this is now going to bring me naturally to the other video mode, which is the exact opposite in terms of flat picture profile use case. And that is the pure video mode. Pure video mode this time, I'm recording in 8K, and I really wanted to see what the quality difference is, because in previous videos, when I was comparing these two cameras, I was using the 5.7K mode, not in 8K. And so what I wanted to see is how much difference is there in the image quality between 8K pure video mode, everything set to auto, compared to the 6K flat picture profile on the Insta360 1RS 1-inch edition. And so this is, I think, where we'll be able to really see the difference. Now, I know I saw some of the comments earlier in my initial first impressions comparison, and the comment feedback was the Insta360 1RS 1-inch edition, although it wasn't as good in low light, in almost all other situations, whether it was the dynamic range in terms of brights and shadows and colors, it just looked more natural compared to the X5 and its overprocessing, which may be true. But that's why I did the earlier tests to use the flat picture profiles and um, the flat picture profiles and the log profile. Sorry, kiddo, we're not playing with the host today. No, 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 no. No host today. No. And so anyway, but here we are, pure video mode. Ease of use, I call this easy mode. Easy mode, high resolution, low light type of setting. But we're gonna see what that looks like. Here we are. The clouds actually just entered behind the cloud. Well, the sun entered behind the cloud, so we've got shade all over. But here we are, the brick wall texture behind me. We've got a wood texture behind me. Let's take a look at the details. I know that the Insta360 X5 is going to do some over sharpening and whatever processing that it does to bring out even the smaller details more than they actually are. But now let's transition into a indoor environment, what that looks like. Here we are, ambient light from the outdoors. This is what this looks like. It's usually in this environment that the Insta360 traditionally has been weak, especially in the shadow areas. There tends to be a lot of noise, and we go into a dimly lit environment, and it's not really all that good either. And so that's what that looks like. And we go into a darker environment, such as the kids' room, and well, we can even consider this night mode. This is the environment. This is what the image looks like. How does it compare between the two of them? Um, so there we go. This is the uh, pure video mode compared. Now, in my experience, in the use of what I have found is I would much rather shoot in pure video mode and then bring down the saturation um, and color to be more natural than to shoot in the flat picture or log picture profile of the Insta360 One RS, 1-inch 360 edition. um, and and bring out those details unless I'm in a very challenging bright environment, and that's why I'm bringing it outside, bright sunny morning, to see how much is that extra detail in log, is it worth it over the convenience of shooting in pure video mode. Okay, so now I'm using pure video mode with 5.7K at 30 frames per second. Why 5.7 as opposed to 8K? Well, according to the Insta360 X5 in its menu, one of the things that is saying that 8K gives you the best image quality, whereas the 5.7K is geared more towards everyday shooting situations and indoor environments. And so my assumption is that it might be, I guess, in some form, combining pixels to give me greater pixel sensitivity in the lower light environments. And so here we are. I'm staying indoors for this mode because that's what that mode says it's for. But hallway, between the two, a relatively dim setup. We go into a dark setup. This is what that looks like. And if we jump into the darkness altogether, how much detail is there? Is this detail even worth considering? I don't know. I normally wouldn't record in that kind of environment anyway, but this sort of environment, I definitely would. And so what is that image quality like? We're back in 8K, 30 frames per second. And this is um, not pure video mode, but it is, but what I have turned on is adaptive tone mapping. And I wanted to see what the difference between this and the Insta360 1-inch edition is. Thank you, buddy. Let's not put that in your mouth. And so let's go ahead and see what that image quality is like. Here, we're going outside. Come on, come on, come on, come on. Let's go outside. All right, so let's go into first a really bright environment because from the picture, it shows a dude on a bicycle, and it's showing behind him a greater sense of dynamic range between, well, with the sky and the highlights and things like that. And so, is that what adaptive tone mapping really is all about? I just realized what adaptive tone mapping is. It has nothing to do with the camera, but it is about enabling a feature within the Insta360 Studio app, and I'm going to show you exactly what that feature is. So first, let's look at something where there's adaptive tone mapping is not turned on. So let me turn that off here. All right, so if we go to a scene, a high contrast scene where, for example, something like this, right? You have myself, the sun is behind me, and as I move the perspective, um, all it's doing, it is changing the perspective. Nothing else is happening. However, if we go to a clip where adaptive tone mapping is enabled and we find ourselves in a high contrast scene, you notice that? So if I move up towards the light, you'll notice the area in the shadow tends to get darker. But let's say I bring my attention more towards the shadow, suddenly the shadow lights up just to kind of give, because that's front and center. And so it increases or increases the luminosity of the shaded area. So this is actually kind of cool, right? Um, so I guess that's the real advantage. But I don't think this is something that's going to. This is something that kind of plays into it when you want to, I guess, dial in your camera positioning a little bit more, or maybe it's if it does it automatically. So, like even, let's see, where else? What other situation would this be in? Okay, yeah, it's happening here. So I point down, it gets darker, and then I point back up, it brightens up the shaded areas. That right there is, I guess, the feature of adaptive tone mapping. It's kind of cool, but here's my whole take with this particular camera in comparison to the 1 inch edition. Um, to tell you the truth, I'm not impressed. This is newer. I get it. It's a smaller sensor. And as a result, just the very nature of sensor sizes, the larger sensor is going to give you a greater sense of dynamic range, highlight roll off, the elements that really make an image look good. Whereas what this one does really well in is, I guess, um, this is a good indoor 360 camera, but the images from the outdoors, I really don't like it. Um, I much rather prefer, and I have been happy with the outdoor images that come out of the Insta360 1 inch edition. In fact, I have no complaints about using this outdoors. It's always been indoor settings that this has been a disappointment. This, however, indoors, um, it's good. It's just not it's not a low light camera. It's just simply an indoor 360 camera. But weirdly enough, the footage does I don't like the way that the footage looks when I bring it outdoors. I have to kind of finesse it a little bit. Whereas all I have to do with this when I shoot flat or log, whatever log this is, all I do is um, just bring down the shadows a bit and bring up the midtones, and I'm done. And maybe bring down the highlights if there's any highlights to be recovered. Um, Whereas this, it just does not look natural to me. When it comes to the outdoors, even indoors, the colors just so punchy. And so, like even for example, the wall that's behind me when I'm standing by the island of the kitchen, you have a green wall and you have I guess, a rusty orange wall. But this thing is making it look pink. It's like you really don't know what your colors are. And so, I am actually inclined towards returning this, and just might put it in order for the DJI Osmo 1 inch. Whereas almost everything from at least the marketing that's pointing is that it has nearly a 1 inch sensor, and it is also great in low light. Um, and so, whereas this I feel like is okay indoors. My advice for anybody who's considering a 360 camera, and you absolutely necessarily need to have a 360 camera, and you're going to be doing things outdoors during the day, get yourself the Insta360 1 inch. And for the price of one DJI, brand new, you could probably get two of these, which is great. Um, but if you're gonna be indoors, then perhaps the X5 is the better option. Um, so yeah, that's my feedback. It's not a bad camera. Like if you don't have a 360 camera at all and you want to shoot indoors, I think most people will, then maybe the X5 is a good option. It's available now if you need it now. But if you're willing to wait, maybe consider the DJI. I can't recommend the DJI because I've never used it. So, but I would be interested to check it out and see how it works in our workflow. I'm gonna use this a little bit more. I got a work thing tomorrow, and so we'll see how it works out in that situation.